Anantakoti Vaishnavrinda ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jai Gaura Premanande. Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Так, сегодня у нас Srimad Bhagavatam.
So today we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 1, text number 32-33. Karbajana Prabhu, can you please read the Sanskrit version? Yeah, sure.
Yamarājasya Shasanam. Uchoho сказали, Nishedhita остановлено.
So, for what translation? Ucha replied, Nishadhita being forbidden, Tan, to the order carriers of Lord Vishnu, Te, they, Vaivasvata of Yamarāja, Purasara, the assistants of messengers, Ke, who, Yuyam, all of you, Pratished Hara, who are opposing, Harmarajasya, of the king of religious principles, Yamarāja, Shasanam, the ruling jurisdiction. The translation of the text. When the order carriers of Yamarāja, the son of the sun god, were thus forbidden, they replied, "Who are you, sirs, that have the audacity to challenge the jurisdiction of Yamarāja?" So, purport of Srila Prabhupada. According to the sinful activities of Ajāmila, he was within the jurisdiction of Yamarāja, the supreme judge appointed to consider the sins of the living entities. When forbidden to touch Ajāmila, the order carriers of Yamarāja were surprised because they had never been hindered in the execution of their duty by anyone within the three worlds. You see, this is totally unheard of. So what we're reading right now in this Canto 6, this is probably the most unheard of event in the whole history. So there are a lot of different intriguing stories, but this one is extremely unheard of. So the death itself was challenged, which is impossible. So there's a proverb in Russian, as true as the death. So no one can argue it. But here you see it has happened. So it wasn't something invented, something false. You know, some people sometimes say that, you know, there's no death, and there's theory and theory, some examples, allegories. They try to mentally speculate about the origin of death. A false thing, of course. So here, it has happened in a totally different way. So Yamadutas were stopped. So there had to be some real power opposing Yamadutas. So the death itself was stopped. So usually everything happens according to the rules, like very definite rules. And then Yamadutas being very surprised, they're asking this question, who are you that can challenge us, that can stop us? No one can stop us. We are the servants of death. Who can stop us? So that's why Yamadutas, they were very upset that the power of Yamarāja were actually challenged. So that's why their question is not just a question or the act of anger or irritation. They were completely surprised. So no one could ever challenge them to perform the duties. It had never happened before. So here, of course, there are some hindrances on this earth level. So before the punishment, a person can actually hide all his sins, so he can probably even escape some of the punishments. So we said that the best thing is when a spiritual teacher punishes his disciple or his father. So only in that way a person's lifestyle could be corrected. And the father was the best means for that. So if a person refuses even the instructions of his father, then the laws of the world that he is living in, the laws of the government or the social laws, they punish him. So Mahalaya, for example, in Uzbekistan, it has its own forms. So if a person refuses the social structure lifestyle and he refuses the laws of the government, he becomes a real rascal, so that even his spiritual teacher or his father cannot influence him. So Yamarāja is inevitable, like you can't do anything against him. So after the death, all the actions during his earth life are actually summoned. They're all summed up. So to Yamaloka there are about 80,000 miles. That's the distance from Earth to Yamaloka. So Yamadutas, they transport you there. So no spaceships, nothing. They have kind of some sex where they put a physical body in of that person and they take you there. So it is also said that the sinner should cover this distance by itself, which is very difficult. So different people, different souls are transported there to Yamarāja in a different way. Some people are given some bikes, motorbikes or scooters, but some people, they just have to go there by foot. And all the way up there, the sinners, they started preaching like, oh my God, why have I done this, why have I done that? Remember, when we commit some sins, we forget about them already the next day and we fall back into the same pattern. So that's why we are trying to study these signs, not only punishment and death. In here it says that, is there anyone higher than you? As Yamadutas, they're asking Yamarāja, is there anyone that is higher and more powerful than you? Yamarāja says, yes, there's someone more powerful than me. So let's move on to the text number 33. So Chaitanya Prabhu, read the Sanskrit, please. So dear sirs, you see, with such a reverence, so it's a very high level, the discussion of Srimad Bhagavatam. We see that Yamadutas, they are quite educated because they serve to Yamarāja, so they know the laws of karma in perfection. But you see, there's something that they do not know, and this is natural. We also know something, and we do not know a lot of things. So, dear sirs, whose servants are you? Who have you come from? Where have you come from? And why are you forbidding us to touch the body of Ajāmila? Are you demigods from the heavenly planets? Are you sub-demigods? Or are you the best of devotees? So you see, there's a choice between 3 categories they're trying to guess. Like demigods. So demigods, they have their own planets. Indra has Indraloka. And the leading demigods, they have their own planets. And they rule there. That's like their residence. So just like we have ISKCON, where we live, we have our own lifestyle. This is kind of Loka. Loka means that we have our own etiquette and laws, culture and philosophy, and our own food. So these are Loka, like a uniform sphere that we're all living in. If you get out of this Loka, there's going to be another Loka, another food, other laws. So it's not only about this geographical space, there's something else out there. So Prabhupada, he wanted to create something like our own Loka. So here, they're demanding which Loka they have come from. Like probably you have some other culture, some siddhas, another behavior. So that's what they're trying to guess. Maybe you're kind of demigods. Maybe the servants of demigods, they're also given a lot of authority. On these lokas, there's no envy. There's a lot of trust. So the servants of demigods, they've got a lot of power in there. So here, for example, if the servant is given a lot of too much authority, he will do some bad things. So here authorities are limited. So you are my servant, here's your salary, it should be lower than mine, and you have a lot of opportunities, and these opportunities should be restricted as well, because if you become bigger than me, you can overthrow me. So there's our earthly Loka, and another Lokas, there's no envy. Something like that exists, but it's all different. Not like here on our planet. And on Vaikuntha, it is said that you even can have the same form as the Lord. You can rule just like the Lord. Or they say, are you the best of devotees? Since Sanskrit it means Siddha Sattama, like the best of the perfect beings, the pure devotees, the highest level. Because such devotees, they have a lot of spiritual power, unrestricted spiritual power. So that's why Yamaduras are getting either demigods, servants of demigods, so the devotees of the highest level that have unrestricted power. They're given the power to even manage demigods, even to instruct demigods. But these are the pure demigods, pure devoted to Lord. So actually Prabhupada, he has brought this really brave conception. So Prabhupada was actually putting an accent on being a pure devotee. So he said, it's all achievable. So if we actually accept this mission, so we can reach it, we can reach this purpose. So what's the difference between fully devoted and undevoted yet? So not fully devoted devotee, he still feels the sufferings and miseries of this world. So he doesn't have this full potency. So he's still dependent on the material energy. But the fully devoted person, he does not depend on under what conditions he lives. His soul is fully satisfied with what he's got. So here they're trying to list demigods, servants of demigods, or the best of devotees, fully devoted to Lord. So let's read the purport. The most significant word used in this verse is siddha sadhana, which means the best of the perfect. In Bhagavad Gita 7.3 it is said, out of millions of persons, one may try to become siddha, which means perfect, or in other words, self-realized. A self-realized person knows that he's not this body, but a spiritual soul. Aham brahmasmi. So you become siddha when you refuses the matter. In a material sense, a powerful person that is getting a lot of stuff, like the property. So this direction is totally opposite. So not everyone is trying to reach this truthful perfection. Even though we understand that here in this world nothing actually belongs to us, but we're still trying to get some property, to collect, to accumulate things. At the present moment, practically everyone is unaware of this fact, but one who understands this has attained perfection and is therefore called siddha. When one understands that the soul is part and parcel of the Supreme Soul, and one thus engages in the devotional service of the Supreme Soul, one becomes siddha satama. It means you are being elevated onto the spiritual platform. It is all described in the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam. So when you change these different gunas, you get in higher from one guna to another one. Then of course you transfer onto the pure level, the level of sattva. On an ignorance level, a devotee thinks that his duty is to criticize all the imperfect things that he sees. He tries to criticize all these things right away, and he thinks that this is his service. So Prabhupada, he also used to criticize some materialists, right? And this lifestyle. So he was for the pure devotional service, but in the mode of ignorance, following this example, these devotees, they just try to criticize and offend other devotees that have some weaknesses. And usually it happens really aggressively. And at all these, they think that they actually practice this devotional service. But then when they have these reactions for these offenses, they lose this power, they lose this motivation. He starts to listen to senior devotees. He starts understanding that critics itself is not so important. It is more important to do something for Krishna. So this devotee goes up to the mode of passion. So he thinks that, okay, other people will see that I'm devotee by the fruits, by my fruits. And he starts serving to Krishna. But this level also frustrates with time. Fruits are always so miserable. Somehow they're all mixed up with some weaknesses, some disadvantages. We still can get criticized for that. And after this, a person starts digging into himself. And he understands that in order to serve Krishna, you have to have a pure heart. Not just Raja Guna, Karma Guna. You have to purify your heart and try following sadhana very strictly. Try to discuss the books, listen to the Holy Scriptures. And even there, he sees that it's not enough. The soul still remains to be unsatisfied. And only then does he get a chance to start devotional service. And this motive becomes very powerful, so that Krishna is satisfied, Guru is satisfied, and all the other Vaishnavas. And this devotee, he feels attachment to the holy name, to his Guru, to other devotees. He wakes up and starts practicing devotional service. And this is very different from the all previous methods, because such people, such a person, is not trying to reach any fruits. He's not chasing any of his personal purposes. So for him, even reading a book, is already a devotional service. So if someone sees anyone else just reading something, so this first person would say, "What are you doing? Just go and do something, work." But on this devotional service level, even if this fully devoted person is just sitting straight doing nothing or reading a book, it doesn't matter what he's doing, he's devoted. So this is already a spiritual level. So I'm not this body. So this person is then eligible to live in the Vaikuntha planets or Krishna Loka. So the word Siddha Sattva therefore refers to a liberated pure devotee. Since the Yamadutas are servants of Yamarāja, who is also one of the Siddha Sattvamas, they knew that a Siddha Sattva is above the demigods and sub-demigods, and indeed above all the living entities within this material world. So you see, the Yamadutas, they have a vast knowledge. They usually portrayed as wild animals, but they're the servants of Yamarāja. They have really great knowledge. Well, because they are conversed to Siddha Sattva. They associate with Siddha Sattvamas, so they cannot make any mistakes. Thus Yamadutas inquired why the Vishnu Dutas were present where a sinful man was going to die. He's a sinner, right? So how could that happen? It doesn't make any sense. So what kind of a pure devotee can associate with the sinner? So these sinners, or the pure devotees, they just associate with similar people, discussing Krishna. But in common sense, they never associate with sinners. Pure devotee, he's trying to talk only to the people. They can discuss Krishna. So that's the only topic they want to discuss. As a matter of fact, in the spiritual world, there's no one to be rescued. There are no sinners. So preaching there is different. Only Krishna Katha. Everything is pierced with another set of mind. So here, we have to also help the sinners. And some of the sinners, they deserve this attention. Even Krishna can pay attention to that, to these sinners. Because Parikshit was worried about that. He was thinking about the sins that the person had committed. Wasn't that a hindrance? So you see, it turns out that the sins are not a hindrance if you want to really go to Krishna. It should also be noted that Ajāmila was not yet dead, for the Yamadutas were trying to snatch the soul from his heart. See, so the process has just started. So this is like one of the scariest moments when the soul leaves the body. They could not take the soul, however, and therefore Ajāmila was not yet dead. This will be revealed in the later verses. So Ajāmila was simply in an unconscious state when the argument was in progress between the Yamadutas and the Vishnudutas. See, they were deciding of whom were going to snatch the soul out of Ajāmila. So just like in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that a soul depends, or a body depends to some soul. So usually a dead body belongs to some birds that can eat a physical body. This body does not belong to us, we just use it. This is not our property, we're just giving it for the usage. But there we have a question, whom does the soul belong to? Whom is it going to belong to in the next life? Maybe a dying soul belongs to Yamarāja. If it's a sin soul, you see, it's also connected to someone, it's not free. Even after the physical death of the body, so your soul belongs to someone all the time. And in Shastras, the description is given of whom your soul belongs to. So we belong to many different things, just like the super soul, and a lot of other powers. So every dying living being, they belong to someone. We belong to Yamarāja and because he's the judge. But initially, our soul is a part of the super soul. So we have to understand it. So I eternally belong to the super soul. The body is not mine actually, and even my soul is a part of something. And what is this spiritual connection? What kind of connection is that? So this is connection with God. So this freedom that we've been looking for, but doesn't actually exist. And it turns out that, on the contrary, when we refuse all the things in the material world, we go back to God. When we refuse all the attachments, we go back to God. That's the only connection that we have. So Prabhupada says that it's all possible, from Kanishka to Madhyama to Uddama. Sometimes we understand Uttama as the spiritual entity, but Prabhupada used to say that not only this. In the spiritual world, yes, that's the result, but here you can judge a person by his sadhana. If you see a person busy with developing his mission, this is Uttama. In the Nectar of Instruction, Prabhupada notes that. It's called sadhana siddhas. Not the siddhas that are described here, liberated souls that associate with Yamarāja, but here it is called sadhana siddha. We can follow this principle of devotion, of service. Prabhupada says this is also a level, a category of Uttama. If this person is fully devoted to his mission, but here such an unusual story is explained, described. So what's going to happen next? It's totally incredible. We do not know yet what's going to happen. So you see, this situation is quite arguable. So there's an argument between Yamadutas and Vishnudutas. So you see, the Vishnudutas, they stopped Yamadutas just by the appearance that they have, by the voices, by some siddhas, and now they have to come up with some arguments So not only the power rules here, so they have to give some arguments of why they stop Yamadutas from taking the sinner to Yamarāja. So what are Yamadutas going to reply? So what can you say? The person is under the judgment. Someone says that you have to free him. But you see, this Ajāmila, he's got so many sins. He has committed so many sins. So Vishnudutas, they have to come up with really decent arguments, more powerful than Yamadutas have. So we'll stop here on this moment today, on this episode, when the argument is just under the way. Then Vishnudutas will be uncovering a very subtle philosophy, a great philosophy to Yamadutas. So now, dear devotees, let's discuss it. Your questions as well. Are there any questions? Hare Krishna, dear devotees. For those watching us on YouTube, please send us your questions. The ones watching us on Zoom, you can turn your microphone on and ask a question. So the first question, Hare Krishna, my obeisances. So I wanted to ask you about this devotion that Prabhupada mentions all the time. So you've explained a lot of things about being humble and devotedness and obeisances. So Dandavatas. So could you please clarify this situation about the mindset? The right mindset. So these are the symptoms of bhakti that I've described. These are all the symptoms of bhakti. And we start out not from bhakti because it's not developed yet. But you have already heard about bhakti and we've already received some influence. But you see our bhakti is not developed yet. So then we are given some instructions, some symptoms of bhakti, what we can do. So pranipad, so we express our gratitude and reverence. So these are the symptoms. And following these symptoms, you can awaken this bhakti inside of your heart. It reveals by itself. You can't even explain it in material terms. So you can only transfer it when it is there. You can't transfer it verbally or explain it. It's impossible. But if we have already heard it from the right source, we can get the seed of bhakti from the spiritual master. So this devotee becomes pure devotee. So we can awaken this bhava, this mindset of a devotional service. So it is expressed not just according to the rules and instructions, but it reveals spontaneously. So what do you think? Is it the right thing? Of course. Nanda Priya Mataji. Hare Krishna, dear Guru Maharaj, dear devotees. So I got a question, probably not on this topic. So Guru Maharaja said that so we have to serve to devotees all the time. Yesterday we organized a family committee and we wanted to know your opinion on that. So we have to have some directions, some trends of what to follow. So we might have a lot of questions, some wishes and desires, but what should we start with? If you created a family, so that means that you've created a family committee, but you do not know what to do? So the thing is that how do we learn how to collaborate? Because each and every one of us has its own opinion, has his own opinion, and the vision of it, the vision of this mission. So you see, so there's a committee that you organize, and inside of it there's a full anarchy. So what happens second? You have to organize a committee. Do not start doing anything, because there will be a lot of disagreements. Do not take any action so far, because you'll have a lot of arguments if you have different opinions. So of course there are some common interests among people, and the main interest is that to raise children. You can start with that. And of course you will come to the point that you can actually first educate their parents. So the biggest hurdle and hindrance in raising the children is their parents, because they're busy all the time. So they may be a serious problem in raising the children. So you have to first think about removing these hindrances first. So when you say you love your children, it's just a sentimental sense, but it's totally irresponsible. You know, parents just say, you know, my love is enough. So you need a lot of effort. This way you need a committee. So I know that the Grihasthas sometimes they want to take their children to Mayapur because they cannot cope with raising the children here. So you have to create normal committee, wise committee. So having arguments does not have to become a habit. So for example, start with children first. You're not supposed to have any arguments. You have to have some schools or kindergartens. See, there are some schools that devotees can take their children to a good atmosphere. Prasadam and teachers, according teachers. Devotees do that. You do too. The committee is organized specifically for that, to extract some use of it. Otherwise, this committee will not play any role. Well, the problem is that committee does not want to take part in taking care of the children. What kind of committee are you? So you've gathered together, and now what kind of committee is that? What kind of questions are you asking me? So you become Grihasthas and you do not need your children? What kind of a conversation is that? It's a shame. Don't get offended. I know that you're not like that. If you don't have any collaboration, you're all good separately, but together, you'll have some problems. That's why I'm talking to you like this. Can I ask you another question? So when I first joined Krishna consciousness movement, I try to make some videos based on your lectures. So I've asked devotees to show you one of the videos, so we can send you these videos, so you can say, you see, you don't even know where to send the videos. I know they can send you on your email, then I hope devotees will show you these videos. We'll send it somewhere. Okay, thank you. So Maharaji is saying that Chelyabinsk is a Tamagura place, but still Gurudev says that Krishna is also there. He has come there as well. So Hare Krishna, thank you very much for the lecture. So this question is that first we have to organize a team and then do something. So I just wanted to clarify if I got it correctly. She said about the kind of evolution of a devotee. So first it's a mode of ignorance, and then the mode of passion, the mode of goodness. So in the mode of ignorance, this devotee sees all these arguments, he underlines them, he puts a stress on them, he tries to criticize them and correct all the situation. In the mode of passion, he's not probably trying to correct it, but he tries to do something by himself, to prove something. He thinks about what other people will think of me, if they will notice me, if they glorify me for my fruits. And then after the devotee understands that these fruits are not so significant, they will not bring you happiness, so he understands that he has to start practicing spiritual life on a serious level. Well, yeah, that's all correct. So this evolution of a devotee, how does it happen? Should we take should we make a conscious choice on each of these stages? So we can't just go to the mode of goodness right away. No, you can't go to the mode of goodness right away. You have to take all the stages. This is called experience. It's an experience, it's a life experience. Of course, we have to understand these things in Krishna's consciousness. So you have to be in Krishna's consciousness. So we go through all these stages, but only our service under the guidance of a spiritual master. If we don't have any spiritual guidance, we will be stopped sooner or later. So some devotees, they do a lot of things, and if they see that there's no glory, no respect, they stop practicing this devotional service. They can't go on. So we need to have this spiritual guidance. Just at some stage, some devotees, they get frustrated without the spiritual guidance. So it can happen to anyone. So we need to have this spiritual guidance at all the stages. That's when you will not have any problems, hindrances. So there will be no splits in our movement if there's just one spiritual guidance, one Bhagavad Gita, one Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God, one Srila Prabhupada the Acharya, one standard of all the principles. There will be some frictions, but not so many serious problems. That's how you can go along this path in a safe manner. The next question is, if I got it correctly, it is important that we have a mentor to take us through all these stages, that we can discuss some personal matters with in order to move further. And I've also noticed that when a devotee has a mentor, there are no common things. They cannot come to an agreement. This devotee and his mentor. So right now, during the pandemic, devotees, they do not travel so much. So how do we find a mentor? Even if I haven't seen this person before. So tell us, please, how we can find a mentor. So if you are, we are all conditioned somehow, right? So for example, a child is being raised in a family. So when will he understand what it is to be a mother or father? Only when he becomes a father himself. So we might not even know who our mentor is, but we already associate with such people. And then in some years, it will turn out that, wow, this devotee, he has done so much for me, so he can be my real mentor. So pay attention to the people that inspire you. Who do you feel being in Krishna consciousness with? So these are the criteria. There can be a lot of Shiksha gurus. They can inspire you, support you, treat you well. And they already play a big role in our lives. So appreciate what you already have. When people say, when someone says, find yourself a mentor, devotees try to understand it like formally. They start searching for the mentor. But this is not right. So we just have to feel it with our heart, what a mentor is. And also one warning for the mentors and disciples. Don't forget one thing. Our common mentor is Srila Prabhupada. Never ever forget about it. So for the movement itself, Srila Prabhupada is the mentor. Just sometimes devotees, they only follow what the spiritual master says. And there can be a problem in mentorship. So there should be no conflicts between the mentor and disciple. Experienced mentors, they should know that they carry Shiksha of Prabhupada and they help their disciples to become stronger with his Diksha Guru. So if Guru has a concrete mission and his disciple only should follow his Guru's mission, not really. So we have to also perform the mission of Srila Prabhupada. So my Guru Maharaj, he does not say that only this thing is important, but the other thing is not important. So the mentors, they have to understand that they are in the movement of Srila Prabhupada. not only in the movement of the spiritual masters, so sometimes instructions can hinder some development. So you have to learn how to do it correctly.
Honorary Priya Mataji, вы довольны ответом?
Еще как?
Окей.
Большое.
Maharaja, you are satisfied with the answer? Yes. So let's transfer to the questions from YouTube.
Вы смотрите, чтобы вопросы иногда бывает не все подряд, может быть, можно читать.
Хорошо, значит, Евгений Прабhu. Харе Кришна, я проповедую через психологию на основе ведических знаний. Постепенно создавая отношения с людьми, открывая...
So Hare Krishna, I'm trying to preach the psychology based on the Vedic knowledge.
Скорее всего, благодаря такой успешной косвенной проповеди, я стану очень богатым и известным. Я на самом деле хочу эти желания реализовать.
So probably thanks to this preaching, I will become very rich and popular and famous.
За 10-15 лет такой проповеди и реализации желаний я очищусь, и материальные желания уйдут.
And I'm hoping that in 10 or 15 years of this preaching,
И вопрос, безопасно ли двигаться в таком ключе? Или есть ошибка в моих планах?
I will become spiritually developed. And the question is it safe to go along the path that I have chosen? So it depends on your relationships with your guru and the devotees. If you're devoted to your guru, there is no danger in that. So it's normal if you become rich. It's not a sinful act if you've made this money by honest job. The question is how you use all this wealth. So if you bring people to Bhagavad Gita, to Prabhupada, that's a big plus, that's a big advantage. So you help people grow spiritually. So it's a pious activity, but it might also have some traps. You can get conditioned by all this wealth. So now it depends on how much you're devoted to your spiritual master. So one of Prabhupada's disciples, so he's the grandchild of the Henry Ford. So when he was asked what he was going to do for the Krishna's consciousness, it was a long time ago. I saw this video. So he said, I'm going to give all my money to Srila Prabhupada. You know what? He has given it. He has invested millions of dollars into the movement. So you see, he wasn't left without money. This person might have millions and even billions because he's devoted.
Спасибо. Следующий вопрос.
Thank you. Next question.
Как сохранить
Шрама
уважение к
Прабху.
старшему преданному, который действует неблагочестиво и нарушает принципы?
How to remain respect to a senior
Больше авторитета.
devotee
Он
that
уже не старший, раз нарушает.
does some not pious things?
Здесь необходима помощь организации.
So to help with the organization of these arguable situations. You know what they do in India? They choose guru themselves in some village. So there's a guru, they put in picture and they just pray. That's the guru. So then they've learned, for example, that this guru eats fish. You know what they do? They take this picture and throw it into the river. They start worshipping this guru. So if guru violates some principles, so you have to refuse him. So this is all prescribed. So Narhari Sarakara, he describes this Guru Tattva. So you can throw either his picture into the river or the guru himself into the river. So you refuse your guru if he violates all these principles. But here we are an organization, we cannot do that. First thing that we have to do, we have to call up to the seniors. We have to refer to the seniors. So it's really hard to work with the seniors. When they are already mentors, they have already some influence in the society, they have some merits. It's really difficult, so they take up this pose. It's like a ring and they try to philosophize with you. They know a lot. So an organization is needed here. So you have to refer to a senior person. You tell them that there's a problem in etiquette, for example. So you can talk to a senior person. Talk to a senior person saying that I have a problem with my mentor, for example, and try to help. So of course a mentor can get offended on you that you had a conversation behind his back, but well, you have to do something with it. It's not okay when the leaders, they behave not piously. It undermines their authority. Can I just add something a little bit? Just to put an emphasis on what you've just said. So the first thing that we have to do is to have this objective picture. Why does a senior Vaishnava violate these principles? Where is it coming from? Are there some witnesses? Or maybe we just read something about it? Or have we actually seen it with our eyes? So we have to clarify the situation. Then the next step. So, what is it that I want? Do I just want to talk behind his back, or I really want to help this person, this senior devotee? So very often does it happen that a person has read something in the internet and he takes actions based on that information, so it's not really effective. Is it true that our future body is being formed every second? And when we leave our present physical body, does it mean that our future body is already formed? So the process of reincarnation is really complicated. So there are 8,400,000 forms of life, and there are varieties inside of these forms. 400,000 human forms of life, and inside each of them there's a vast variety. And so there's a living person, incarnated one, so he acts and he forms his karma. So karma, as it is described in Bhagavad Gita, it's an activity that creates your future body, your next incarnation. It defines your next incarnation. So that's a path of new body formation. So an example is given of a seed that gives birth to a tree, then this tree gives birth to a new seed. But the seed should be of a definite type. It should suit some type. So for example, we don't see a form of life as a half pig, half person, half snake, half person. We don't see this mix. So a person might be in this life somewhere in the middle, between the consciousness of a dog or of a person. For example, he's in the form of a person, but his consciousness is like half dog, half human. So what do we do in this case? So this person should go on living until he defines who he is. Sometimes we have a not civilized human society, like so the point is that until you define who you are, you don't die. And when the soul is ready to leave this body, only that's when you leave your body. So this is just a very short fragment of what I've just described. So there's a lifespan that is given to you, some actions are predefined. There are many, many factors that we can barely analyze. But the principle, you understand it. The tree will definitely produce a new seed. So our body is just like this tree that gives birth to another living being. Maybe not just one seed, but many seeds will appear. So that's why it's really hard to analyze this law. Do you remember the story with Dhritarashtra? So why he was born blind? He has produced hundreds of sons. See, his karma was really mixed. It says that 100 lives ago, he was a hunter. He was in the body of a hunter. So he was killing in a very violent way some birds. And some bird went blind because it was crying so much, because all of its children were killed by Dhritarashtra. And Dhritarashtra, he had no compassion for all these little birds. So he had deserved. He deserved it. He had deserved his blindness just because of this bird. So why did he wait? Did he have to wait for 100 lives? And then he needed these 100 lives to get some merits to have 100 boys to repay that sin. You see, sometimes that when we have a debt, we have to make some money to pay this debt back. We have to pay it back. You see, this is a very complicated law. I don't think that we are capable of such a deep analysis. Thank you very much. Next question. So I just want to read 2 verses from Bhagavad Gita. So the material world, the living entity, brings his imagination of this life, and then you leave this body in order to get another one. By entering a new gross body, a living entity gets new ears, eyes, tongue, nose, and skin. So all these senses, they are located around the mind. And he perceived this world thanks to these organs of senses. So mind is an element of the subtle body. So mind is a cornerstone in the process of reincarnation. So you have to control your mind. Hare Krishna.
Следующий вопрос.
Да, спасибо
So
большое за
next
вопрос.
question.
Евгений Прабhu, какая польза от чтения книг Шрила Прабхупады?
So what's the use of reading Srila Prabhupada's books if you do not associate with either devotees or guru? That's also a form of association. It's also a form of it. It's called Vani, through instructions. It has a very strong power. So keep reading. Just reading Prabhupada's books will sooner or later take you to the society of devotees.
Радха Чаран прабhu.
Radha Charan prabhu, next question.
Скажите, все-таки Джамила произнес чисто святое имя, или его освобождение произошло от его...
So when Ajāmila pronounced his holy name, did he say it purely?
Ведь внешне он звал сына... Ведь внешне он звал сына.
Remember, he was actually
Этот момент.
calling up his son, but not the God himself. That's just the power of the holy name that has attracted Vishnu Dutas. And the Lord, he has heard his name. So he heard Ajāmila's calling. So he was, remember, Ajāmila was calling up his son, but he has pronounced the name of Narayana. And when he pronounced Narayana, he probably recalled Narayana just for a split of a second. So even when we call up a spiritual name, some devotees, we still think of Krishna, right? So it's called not offended repetition or chanting of a name. So that's how Ajāmila got liberated. So the sound is really silent, so the translator cannot hear anything from the auditorium. So we've seen a devotee practices just alone, without associating with anyone else. So what's the question? So not all devotees are at the level of sadhusanga. You have to reach it. So if a devotee reads books, but he does not associate with devotees, it says that he's got some faith, but he's not attached to devotees yet. He hasn't reached that level yet. He doesn't differentiate a devotee from non-devotee. So he doesn't have this taste yet. So reading books helps a lot, but there are some hindrances. It does help, but if there's some critics directed to Vaishnavas, there's a big hindrance in your development. So you have to discuss Krishna in the society of
Поэтому, есть
devotees.
такие примеры разочарованных немножко
So
преданных,
there are some examples of
разочарованных, скажем, в общении, конфликтах, ну, обычно.
devotees that got
Себе и как-то продвигаются понемножку.
upset about the spiritual practice. They got disappointed.
Такой пример тоже.
So you see,
А в чем был вопрос?
we have this
Вопрос
example.
в том, что может ли человек прогрессировать, не общаясь с преданным, изучая Шримад Бхагаватам? Так?
So can a person progress
Я имею в виду уже преданные,
just by reading but
знающие,
without associating with devotees?
преданные, старые преданные.
The question was about a senior and old devotee.
Кто практикует как?
So he practices by himself without even associating with
С
devotees.
этим я вспомнил высказывание Шрила Прабхупады,
So in connection with that,
поскольку вы
I've just
сегодня
recalled
говорили,
one thing that Prabhupada said.
книга Бхагавата, есть личность Бхагавата. И Шрила
So
Прабхупада
there's a book of Bhagavatam, there's a personality of Bhagavatam.
Книга Бхагавата ничего вам не скажет.
So the book itself
Личность Бхагавата может
would not tell you anything,
задать вам уши.
but the personality
По-моему, так.
will.
То есть личность может поправить вас.
So the personality of this book will help you.
Да, у меня к этому вопросу вопрос не к ответу. Если я правильно услышала, что когда преданный разочарован, да,
So if I understand it correctly, when a devotee is disappointed,
в одиночестве в итоге.
so
И,
he starts
как
practicing
преданному
lonely,
выйти из этого
in a
состояния
solitude,
и всё-таки
how can he go out of this
физического настроения, да,
condition
избавиться от страха,
and
что
leave
попытают, и всё-таки
all his fears
общество преданных именно.
and
Это
come
сейчас
back
теперь
to the
в
society of
очень
devotees?
удобно, везде же всё по интернету есть, можно никуда не ходить.
So now, for example, you see it's very convenient to sit at home and practice because you
Как выйти из
all
этого
have it in the internet. So how do we get out of this condition?
Состояние очень желает.
Well, it's just a matter of desire.
Например, Брихат Бхагаватамрита описывает, что когда Гоп-Кумар ищет преданного в комнате,
When Gopkumar is looking for devotee,
путешествие интересное,
he starts his journey.
в Праяге, вместе слияния там священных рек, видит такого чистого брамана удивительного. И принимает его как чистого преданного, а браман указывает выше, и потом начинает...
So he meets Brahman, he takes him as a pure devotee,
И когда они доходят до Господа Брамы, он
and when they reach
Брамы,
the Lord Brahma,
Брама ему говорит,
so Brahma
я
says
не
to him,
преданный.
I'm not a devotee.
Потом добавляет, вообще в этом
Then he
вселенной
adds,
преданных нет.
in all this universe there are no devotees.
С этой точки зрения мы не должны общаться ни с кем здесь.
From this point of view, we're not supposed to associate with anyone else because there are no devotees.
Духовный мир, посмотреть с его точки зрения, тут вообще нет никакого понятия даже преданных, не то что преданных, даже понятия преданных.
But from the standpoint of spiritual world, there are no devotees here at all. In the material world, it's all just darkness,
Только теоретическое.
only theoretical
Есть вещи, которые вообще
thing.
недоступны даже великим.
So there are things that are totally inaccessible for us because we live in the material world.
Ну, всё относительно. Но
You see, all is very relative,
в этом смысл Брихат Бхагаватамриты, чтобы
but it's not the sense
отвергать тех, кто ниже, да, поднимаясь выше. Это
not to
важно.
refuse,
Отвергать, оскорбительно относиться пренебрежительно к тем, кто ниже, да, и считать их непреданными, нет.
not to refuse people that are on a lower platform,
Восхищая каждую платформу,
lower level.
восхищаясь каждой
You have to glorify each level, each platform, admire
платформой.
them.
Я тут познал многих, у всех недостатки.
And if you say that, oh, I already know a lot of them, they all have some weaknesses and disadvantages,
То это,
so Guru Maharaj is the only devotee.
это критическое настроение, человек должен сам признать.
So this is a criticizing mindset.
Вот Карабаджана
You have to
Прабhu
leave it.
задавал такой вопрос, хотелось тоже от вас услышать ответ. Что делает нас желанными в обществе преданных? Правильно я поняла?
So what makes us desired in a society of devotees?
Что делает нас желанными в обществе?
Как заслужить это?
How do we deserve to be desired by them?
Что делает нас желанными?
Да, вот
Просад.
именно, и как заслужить
you can deserve it by prasadam.
Для просадом
By feeding them with prasadam, delicious prasadam. It should be delicious prasadam.
Прасад это сам Кришна.
Prasad is Krishna himself.
Хороший прасад сразу в одно мгновение покоряет сердце.
So a good prasadam, it conquers your heart right away.
это одна из форм любовных взаимоотношений.
So this is
Садхана, угощать.
one of the forms of loving relationships.
Когда мы приехали в Джаганнатхапури второй раз, да, мы уже
So when we went to Jagannath Puri for the second time,
Господа Джаганнатхи, мы приехали второй раз, и нам удалось заказать прасад прямо вот туда, с алтаря Господа
we've
Джаганнатха.
managed to order prasadam from the Lord Jagannath's
Заказали преданные,
altar.
сделали заказ. Нам
So
сказали,
we
всё,
placed
значит,
this order,
значит, в 6 часов вечера будет у вас маха-прасад.
and they said that at 6 o'clock you would have
И мы в гостинице по
Mahaprasad.
значит, ждем 6 часов.
So we are sitting in the hotel, 6 o'clock,
Indian time, там,
no one
время,
is
час точно.
no one is coming, but we're thinking, oh, that's Indian time. 7 o'clock, no one.
В общем, мы ждали до 11 ночи.
So we were waiting until 11
Вот,
o'clock.
но я говорю, мы не все, потому что некоторые пошли спать, сказали, точно его не привезут. Вот, а несколько человек, я в том числе, верили, что привезут.
So some of the people, they went to bed already, but there were few people, and me including. So we decided to wait for Mahaprasadam. They brought it at 11 o'clock.
А мы так устали, представьте, и мы ждали это.
We were so tired.
Думали то, и все, и мантру повторяли.
We already thought so many different things. We chanted, we prayed, we sang kirtan,
Просто берете кусочек, пробуете, и полное счастье.
and they just taste
И всё
a piece of this
смывается,
prasadam.
все
You become happy. You forget about all the miseries.
Кришна. Кришна нас делает, ну как, привлекательными или
So
приемлемыми.
Krishna makes us attractive,
Когда
acceptable.
Ядавы молились Кришне, они
When
сказали,
Yadavas
что
were praying to Krishna and
мы
said
были
that
просто
without you,
чужими друг другу,
we would have
сборищем
been
чужих людей.
aliens to each other.
Династия Ядов. Ты нас вот связал так, сблизил, говорит,
So
ты
you've
нас так
tied us
сблизил,
up,
такой
you've connected to all of us.
Ты сделал
You've
нас
brought us
чужими
together.
людьми, сборищем чужих людей.
You've brought us all together.
Как материальный мир — это сборище чужих людей.
It's just that this material world is just the group of alien people, people that do not know each other. But you've brought us all back together.
Нитай Мангала Прабhu.
Nitai Mangala Prabhu.
Харе Кришна, дорогой Гуру Махарадж,
Hare Krishna, dear Guru Maharaj.
дорогие преданные, примите
Please
поклон,
accept
пожалуйста,
my
чтобы
obeisances,
духовно
dear devotees.
сильно. Гуру Махарадж, у меня вот такой вопрос. Ну, сверяя, читая книги Шрилы Прабхупады, я такой интересный момент нашел.
So reading Srila Prabhupada's books,
первой главы
I've come across a very interesting detail in the first canto.
переведено так, что нужно Бхагавад-гиту изучать очень внимательно.
So it says that you have
В
to
английском языке там
scrutinize
используется необычное слово
Bhagavad Gita very
very scrutinizingly.
attentively.
Что тщательно сверяя, и более того, это
So in English it says
называет это английское слово
very scrutinizingly.
скрытые ошибки, искажения,
So to scrutinize
Если
means that you have to do it very thoroughly,
специально применялось
probably
ранее
trying to find some
концепты для изучения тех, кто
mistakes.
находится под руководством веры.
And this word used to be
Very scrutinizingly.
used
Я хотел бы у вас
back in a time,
услышать, может быть, комментарий, попросить вас раскрыть, что это значит для нас.
meaning that to scrutinize means to try to find some mistakes or discrepancies. So I just wanted to double check if it's the right meaning. What does it mean to thoroughly check up all the information?
Вышел за пределы камеры.
Я расту, Гуру Махарадж.
Явно.
So here it just doesn't actually even suit the limits of the camera. So that means I'm growing.
Это тоже пхава, я понимаю, это тоже пхава, выражение пхавы.
So understand there's also power.
Но вопрос интересный, нормальный.
Well, the question is good.
И что я думаю, когда я читаю книги Прабхупады на английском, да, ну, если
So when I
внимательно
read Srila Prabhupada's books in English,
то я вижу, что у него как бы комментарии очень богатые оттенками, синонимами.
I see that his commentaries are very rich
богатство оттенков
in
создает
different meanings,
живую, как бы протяжку дает им, да, почувствовать прям
and that
вот
creates
то духовное
prachaksha.
Прабхупада. Очень
It
сильное такое влияние.
gives
Я
us this
писал специально
feeling
по-английски.
of what he's trying to tell
Оригинал
us.
какой-то. Там
So that's what I
повторяния
feel
читал, там
when
добавлял
reading
каждое слово, вот так
the
вот.
original
Просто
text in
прочитываю
English.
текст, да. Вот сейчас я прочитываю текст уже быстро, потому что я его читаю на английском языке. Там быстро. Уже не так внимательно
So now I read
читаю,
text
как раньше.
really fast
Прочитываю, вспоминаю, что вот это я
because I
слышал,
already have
читал,
this
знал.
experience.
Но когда
And when I read it, I understand that, oh, I've already read that, I've read that.
опять вижу вот эти оттенки, вот все это разнообразие.
And when I stop and use the vocabulary, I again see a lot of
И
different
я
kind of
думаю, что к нам
tints,
должно это прийти,
different
вот эти тонкости, да, восприятия.
explanations or meanings of these words.
Ну, как бы с нашим духовным очищением. Естественно, мы должны научиться чувствовать тонкое.
So the more pure we become, the more we understand of what Srila Prabhupada is trying to tell us.
В переводах, понятное дело. Все равно через практику мы можем как бы чувствовать.
So with practice, we can start feeling all these hints and different meanings of these words.
Оригинал дал мне как бы авторизацию этих моих чувств.
So the original
Когда
text,
мы не уверены, как я чувствую, правильно, неправильно.
it's given me the
Скажем, да, текст. Я вижу, что это правильно, да, мои ощущения точно так совпадают с тем, что
authority of my
говорит,
senses.
отвечает вот эти оттенки, да, вот авторизованы. Тоже. Поэтому, ну, всегда приходится корректировать какие-то переводы.
That's why we always have to correct some variants of translation, because devotees, they did it in different times. There were a lot of additions. It's a normal thing. It's not critics, it's just our work, it's just our job.
Спасибо.
Thank you.
Nimai Hari Prabhu.
Nimai Hari Prabhu. I can't hear anything, I'm sorry.
И потом мы можем читать книги Прабхупады, и если мы все просто принимаем, мы просто можем думать, ну вот я это уже читал, я это уже знаю, все правильно, и просто будем пролетать, и книги Прабхупады...
So sometimes when we read Srila Prabhupada's books for the second and third times, we think to ourselves, oh, I've already read that, and we just skip that information and we don't think about it thoroughly. So how do we still keep this critical approach and read these books deeply? So Prabhupada, he called this book Bhagavad Gita as it is. So he has remained on the Sanskrit and word-for-word translation, so that we make sure that this is just his invention, this is the original text. So even Sanskrit transliteration and word-for-word translation. So sometimes when I was reading Srila Prabhupada's books, I thought to myself, like, wow, Srila Prabhupada must be so wise. Then I understand that Srila Prabhupada, he was just kind of retelling all these holy scriptures, that it's all the original.
Chaitanya Chandra Charan prabhu, еще мы можем какое-то время продолжать с вопросами?
Ну, уже вопросов, кажется, нету на сегодня, да?
Вот еще поднимает руку Дамадара 3 и также
So there's one more
в YouTube.
question and some more questions on YouTube.
Там есть в YouTube какие-то интересные вопросы сегодня?
Давайте
Are there any new
спросим,
interesting questions on YouTube today?
Ну, там осталось 3-4 вопроса.
давайте интересные вопросы задавайте.
Можно дополнение небольшое вот на вопрос Нитамангала?
Давайте.
Да? Я быстренько. Просто да, здесь сказано, что он должен...
So I just wanted to add something in Mangala's question.
Кришны. В первом стихе, то есть здесь ключ, мне кажется, акцент на том, что с помощью преданного. В целом, по английским переводам, по переводам просто часто слышишь какое-то критику и
So when reading some original text in English, I hear critics a lot of time.
это настроение, которое передает
So the point is that the mindset of a translator, because the translators are the devotees, that they transfer this mindset. So even Prabhupada tells about that. So of course this work, it will have some discrepancies probably. So I just feel some pain for the translators. It's just a titanic work. It's a tremendous job. And I think that these translations are very good.
Ага, вопрос из чата, значит. Маша Виктория, если человек соприкоснулся с преданным служением, поел прасада или поддержал книги...
So if a person has some contact with devotional service, has eaten some prasadam or has read some Prabhupada's books, so this person will not be taken by Yamadutas? Well, probably he will be taken. But Yamarāja will take into account all your merits. So if you have already eaten prasadam, there's probably a guarantee that you'll be born in a human body next life. So be sure that Yamarāja will take that into notice. That's a marvelous story that you used to tell us, a very inspirational story. See, if I'm not mistaken, it's connected with Narada Muni and Maharishi Maharaj. Ambarish Maharaj, sorry. So one time, Ambarish Maharaj asked Narada Muni for a visit. So Narada Muni said, chant the holy names of God, Krishna. And then that one wanted to kill Narada Muni. So Narada Muni has disappeared. And he said, when you face Yamarāja, ask him a question. Association with devotees, what can it lead to? So then this person faces Yamarāja. So they started reading, taking a look at all the sins that he had committed. So this person was becoming smaller and smaller and smaller, have a lot of fears. Then at some point, this image with the Narada Muni's association has come up on the surface. And he said, Yamarāja, I have a question. Well, anyways, he was going to repay all his sins. So Yamarāja Prabhu, tell me please, what can an instant of association with the pure devotee can lead to? So Maharaja has opened his eyes. And he says that this is the essence of bhakti. And I don't think that there's a qualified person that can answer this question. So Yamarāja brought him to Brahma. Brahma said that I cannot answer a question in all this full beauty. Then to Vishnu. So then 4 of them, they came to Vishnu and they asked him this question. And they said, that's what it can take you to, where it can take you to. They turned out to be associated with Vishnu. So you see this instant of association with the pure devotee, that's where it can lead to.
Хотя,
Харе Кришна, буквально здесь 3 вопроса небольших остались. Александр,
3 short questions.
Александр Прабhu. Харе Кришна, спасибо за эфир. Как научиться творить для Кришны? Стать
How do I learn
а не
to
себя?
create for Krishna?
Творить творчество. Да, Кришна.
Вселенная, планеты.
Да, хороший вопрос. Похоже на ту историю, которую Прабху рассказал.
That's
Это тоже может привести нас к Богу, такой вопрос.
a good question, just like the story that Karabhajana Prabhu just told us. But I can lead you to Krishna.
Нужно узнать его вкусы.
First, you have to learn his
С одной стороны,
taste.
это кажется сложным, с другой стороны,
On the
нет,
one hand, it
потому что
seems to be
Кришна
difficult,
любит
but on the other
Бога.
hand,
Нужно его просто изображать.
Krishna likes himself,
Он любит,
so you
когда
have
его
to
хвалят,
just portray Krishna,
нужно хвалить, любит, когда ему служат.
give some merits to him,
Вот в таком духе можно
give some
заниматься,
appraisal to him. That's how you can create for Krishna.
прославляя Кришну. Это и есть
Glorify Krishna. That's the creativity.
Кришна самый эгоистичный из всех живых существ, знаете?
So Krishna is the most egoistic of all the living beings. He's got unrestricted
Без
ego,
границ, поэтому всё от
no
него,
limits.
и поэтому всё для него.
Everything is coming out from him.
Это его природа,
That's his nature,
его природа Бога.
his nature of God.
Мы изучаем Кришну и также общаемся с преданными,
Let's just be
творим иногда для удовлетворения
examine
преданных
Krishna.
также. Ставим какие-то постановки,
Sometimes
пишем что-то, стихи,
we even,
читаем, потом прочитываем на вечера с преданными, так иногда проводим.
we compile some verses,
И
we play in theaters,
Кришне нравится.
and Krishna likes this atmosphere, this creative atmosphere.
Также продемонстрировать свои способности.
Person can also demonstrate his
Кто он?
skills,
Какой он поэт, допустим,
of who he is, what kind of poet he is, for example, or an actor.
это тоже допускается в этом процессе.
It's also
Читание авторизовал театр.
possible in
Одновременно
this
мы реализуем
process.
и свои какие-то, да, как бы
So,
свои
simultaneously, we
потребности эго.
express our demands of ego,
И с другой стороны удовлетворяем
requirement. And at the same time, we satisfy Krishna's ego, and everyone is happy.
Поэтому художникам нужно изучать атрибуты Кришны.
So artists, they have to scrutinize Krishna's attributes, look at his portrayals, authoritative portrayals. You have to copy probably something to be examined by you. Also, when you play in a theater, you have to learn the history, Bhagavad Gita, of course, and all this platform of knowledge you create. So that's how you can learn to create in a Krishna's consciousness.
И последний вопрос.
Да.
И вот 2 последних, да. Матаджи Елена. Что такое любовь?
So Mataji Elena,
Любви к Кришне.
what is love? I understand that I don't have love for Krishna.
Каковы критерии любви? Вся любовь,
What are the criteria of love?
друзья старших преданных?
Но это сложная тема.
Wow, that's a difficult topic. You can't explain what love is. You can't get a touch of it. So love for Krishna that we're talking about doesn't exist in the material world. I don't think that you will just get it for our work, for the work that we do. This love, it's selfless. So this love will manifest sooner or later. Krishna gives us this love just to give us more faith. He can give us just a little bit of it. So first we have to get rid of all our selfish desires. Only then we can feel something at least. But now it is important to know but the example of liberated souls, just like gopis,
Отец Ишоды Нанда Махарадж,
Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda,
размышляет на эти темы. И
the
это
parents
бхава
of Krishna.
проникает в наше сердце.
And this bhava, it enters our heart gradually.
Знать об этом.
We just have to know about it.
Прежде чем она пробудится, мы должны узнать о ней.
Before it awakens, we have to know about it.
Лишь не так-то просто полюбить, потому что он не материален.
It's not easy to love Krishna, to fall in love with Krishna, because he's not material.
Целый процесс.
There's a whole process behind it.
Иногда очень сложно для кого-то получится.
Sometimes it's really hard to do it.
И там научиться чувствовать что-то. Пока
And
мы
then you
заморожены
can
материальной
always
природой,
learn to feel something, at least something.
поэтому не так
Now the only thing that we worry about is our gross body.
Скорее всего, если вы совершаете какие-то предписания, строго соблюдаете, вам не
So if you
хватает
follow
этой
some
эмоциональной составляющей.
principles, some instructions,
Просто человеческой дружбы, любви вот это не хватает, может быть, поэтому чувствуете себя не очень хорошо.
maybe you just lack a little bit of friendship, of love in relationships.
Поэтому здесь мы должны тоже иметь поддержку, прибежище. Это
So here we also have to have some support,
новые люди, друзья,
some shelter
сознание Кришны.
at our families and friends.
В этом может быть нехватка.
Maybe you lack some of this.
И последний вопрос.
Да, последний вопрос.
Last question.
Почему рождается ребенок с ДЦП?
Почему?
So why sometimes children are born with mental problems? I don't know the exact answer, but I've heard some children with these problems. So children with cerebral spastic infantile paralysis, they're very kind. Well, they don't have this intelligence, of course. They can talk, but the point is that they feel everything on a very high level. They love kirtans very much. They love the atmosphere of devotees.
Я вижу, что это преданные, ну, совершившие какие-то, может быть, оскорбления в прошлом.
Also, they probably
Чтобы эти
have
оскорбления не
committed a lot of offenses in their previous lives.
они потеряли, может быть, разум какой-то, который оценивающий, да? Для них все хорошие.
So probably that's because they've lost this evaluating
Может быть, вот
intelligence in this life.
на своем опыте немножко.
That's why they love everyone in this life. They treat
Есть,
everyone
конечно, причины.
on the same level. Of course, there have to be some reasons in the previous lives.
Хорошо. Спасибо всем большое. Харе Кришна.
So thank you everyone very much. Hare Krishna.
Да, и
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Chaitanya Chandra Charan